Chain shot. Naval technology. 17th to 19th century. Since the Chinese first invented gunpowder back in the 9th century AD, large field guns and artillery have developed much over the centuries. But it quickly became apparent that though the design and how a cannon was constructed was of great importance, it was also equally important what these weapons fired that would make them truly effective. The beginning of the modern age happens with the discovery of many new ways to navigate the seas. In the 15th century, for example, there was the invention of the caravel by the Portuguese that was much more maneuverable. Inventions like this made the Portuguese the first major naval power in the Age of Discovery. Competition between the European powers made sea warfare even more important. So by the 17th century, large muzzle-loading smoothbore cannons dominated the battlefields and naval engagements between the European powers, which in turn led to a whole assortment of different ammunition being used by them, each tailored for a particular need and purpose, depending on the situation. But as the famous British naval commander Admiral Horatio Nelson once said, "Time is everything. 5 minutes makes the difference between victory and defeat." And with a muzzle-loading cannon taking around 2 minutes to load, choosing the right kind of ammunition at the right time was crucial. There was the standard solid round cannonball made of cast iron. This lent itself well to most situations with deadly effect, having both a good range and a fair degree of accuracy. Though it did have its limitations, mainly it only caused damage to what lay directly in its path. So the nasty but highly effective canister round, which was used in the invasion of Constantinople in 1453, was developed. These projectiles were made from a metal can filled with lead musket ball scraps or slugs. The can would disintegrate when fired and its content would scatter everywhere, cutting down infantry and cavalry over a wide area as it did so. In the 1700s, there was another kind of scatter projectile called the Crepe Shot, which was used against personnel. It consisted of a bunch of cast iron balls bound together in a cloth bag, reinforced with a net of heavy cord. It could disable men at almost 900 yards. The downside to both canister and Crepe Shot was that they tended to either bounce off or do very little real damage to the wooden warships of the period. The answer to this problem came in the form of the chain shot, which consisted of two slightly smaller cannonballs or half-balls connected together by a length of chain. When fired from a cannon, the balls would move apart and tumble through the air, pulling the chain taut. This would make it inaccurate, so it could only be used at a very limited range. A variation of this was the rare spider shot, which had many chains instead of just one. This type of projectile was particularly effective against the sails, masts, and rigging of a ship, shredding and tearing them apart. A few well-placed shots could severely slow down or disable a warship, allowing the firer to either escape or position themselves better to finish off the damaged ship. A variation on the standard chain shot was the bar shot, where the chain was replaced by a rigid metal bar, making it look like a dumbbell. It was used mainly against rigging, but this often proved unpredictable when fired, as it had to tumble just right when in flight to be truly effective. The lethality of chain shot on both men and ship can be seen during the Battle of Lowestoft in 1665 at the start of the Second Anglo-Dutch War from 1665 to 1667. The Dutch flagship Endrecht fired on the English flagship the Royal Charles as they battled one another at very short range. One of the salvos from the Endrecht contained a chain shot and cut across the deck of the English ship, killing a number of royal court officials, slicing them into pieces. The chain shot narrowly missed killing the nearby English fleet commander, Lord High Admiral James Stuart, who would later become King James II of Great Britain. Admiral Stuart was splattered with his subordinates' blood and matter, with skull splinters and bedding in his hand, and though shaken by this, he continued to press home the attack on the Dutch ship. A short time later, a salvo from the Royal Charles of solid cannonballs punctured the Endrecht's hull, hitting the ship's gunpowder room and shattering the Endrecht into 1,000 pieces by an almighty explosion. Only 5 members of its 409 crew survived the catastrophe. Chain shot continued to be an important part of a warship's arsenal for the next few hundred years. For instance, they were still being used during the 1812 war between America and Great Britain. The U.S. Navy ships carried a lot of this kind of ammunition on board, whereas the British stocked just a handful of chain shot aboard their ships. But by the end of the 19th century, chain shot had had its day, as all-metal steam-powered warships started to replace the wooden-masted ships, and heavy armor-piercing shells became the new standard round.
Hey Simple History fans, if you're looking for a better way to support the channel and help us create more epic content, consider becoming a member on our channel. Becoming a member means that for just $5 a month, you'll get these amazing perks. You'll be the first to see new episodes with early access. You can watch new episodes before anyone else with this perk. The Enlisted Badge, a custom icon that shows alongside your username in the comments section and in live chat. As a member, you'll become an influencer with member-only comments. You can communicate directly with us and help us pick the topics that we'll do next on Simple History. And remember, it's not mandatory to become a member. Our videos will continue to be uploaded as usual. Thank you for letting us feed your hunger for history.